appreciate it. And that leads us into our continued series of player profiles for this year. One of the things that we started a couple episodes back was we're going back and looking at the players on this roster two at a time and anticipating what we feel like sometimes their ceiling and their floor can be for North Carolina. We're also trying to analyze what they have to be for North Carolina to reach, the goals that they're going to set for themselves, and probably did when they officially opened practice. So one of the ones we want to talk about, coming back for his sophomore year, Elliot Cadeau. Sean, you mentioned a second ago, I think an increased tempo is really going to help Elliot. But I think also we recognized last year he was not his usual self when he wasn't hitting jump shots. I think he was allowing defenses to sag a little bit and maybe cheat a little bit and not guard him as much when he wasn't taking jump shots. So obviously, that's going to be an area that he's looking to improve. Sean, I'm going to stay with you. What is the one thing that you feel like Elliot Cadeau has to be for this team to succeed this year? Is it more of a dictator of that pace? Is it somebody who's taking care of the ball, or is it somebody who just is a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 facilitator?
Well, I think we all know, we can't. What we saw in the Alabama game, that can't happen in terms of just being able to put a 5-man on them and just play off. So that'll be the thing that everybody's trying to push him on early in terms of other teams and game plan. But I think um, for this season and this season of Cadeau, you started to see, I think, that the leadership aspect blossom as he went through the year and got more comfortable around the guys and be more vocal. So I think that is one thing I'd say that you'll want to see on the floor. But I think as long you don't need him to score 15 to 20 points per game, right? Especially with that talent. So I think you just want to see him continuing to stay aggressive, but also he was forced to be very one dimensional in terms of his I'm going to beat you off the dribble and attack, and then soon after a while teams started either playing off of him or trying to force him to the left, just because that first step is so quick. So I think once again, if he can, even if it's not one, you want to see improvement from the 19% from 3-point line, but say he's not a 35% 3-point shooter, if he can be respectable, but more importantly, I think get confidence in that dribble pull up from 15 that we talked about a lot of time, which we did see at the beginning of that Alabama game. If you have that, then you're not going to be able to play, that 5-man or 4-man. Or, what is he doing off the ball in terms of cutting, setting picks, which he was doing before he got trucked by Mark Sears in that game, and I don't think he probably did it afterwards. But once again, what's he doing off the ball? Because he is so dangerous, and I think probably last year when we were doing this, thought maybe his assist rate would be higher, or the assists per game would be higher. But at the same time, in terms of what he took off of RJ's load from a ball handling, and I think how that helped RJ turn into that scorer that UNC needed him, and we all thought he could be. I still think that was a huge aspect of last year, even if the numbers didn't bear it out for Cadeau. So I would see an increase in points and assists just on traditional stats, but I think the main thing going back to pace will be get him the ball off the rebound, push it up, and he's going to be able to hit Tyson for a 3, Jackson or Drake go on the basket, RJ, etc. So him just playing quarterback is going to be, one of the key parts to how the offense goes this year.
Sherelle, describe for me what it looks like when Elliot Cadeau is at his best with regard to this team. I don't mean, Elliot Cadeau goes out and gets a triple double with 40 points. I mean, what is the best what does he look like? So I'm telling you, when fans are watching UNC for the first time this year and they see Elliot Cadeau do X, Y, Z, those are the things that really signify, okay, he's taking the next step.
Well, you talk about the things that make great coaches is that they adapt their philosophy around or make it work for their players. Their best players are the most important players. And I think you can make an argument that Elliot Cadeau is as important as anyone on UNC's roster because, as you said, he is kind of the quarterback, the conductor. So him in the open court, if they're able to play at the speed that they want to play with, I think he's going to have a fantastic year just because his brightest moments in college basketball, in my opinion, last year as a freshman, were when he had plenty of space, he was pushing tempo, as Sean said, and he was finding guys, open. Think about the Florida State games where he had the drives. Think about the Michigan State game where he had a couple of really nice cross court passes. I just think tempo, free flowing. Up and down is really the kind of style that you want to play with someone like Cadeau. And I think the beautiful thing of it, the way the roster is made up, is that he'll have 4 or 5 really good finishers, and not just dunkers. Like dunking is a way to finish, sure, great, but Kate Tyson and R.J. Davis, you can also consider them as finishers during a fast break. And having Cadeau pushing pace, drawing in defense to dish off to those two, who are just lethal shooters, I think is really kind of Elliot Cadeau at his best, when he has the ball in his hands and he knows what he's going to do. 3 steps ahead of what the defense is going to do. He knows where the rotation is coming from. He knows who he's going to pass it to. He knows who's going to cut. So really, him kind of manipulating the defense is when you see Elliot Cadeau at his best. And I think he's able to do that the most when they're playing up tempo and getting up and down the court, going coast to coast, as it were.
I like that. And by the way, we know that he's worked significantly on his shot during the offseason. So the one thing that I think folks.
Let's talk about that, Joey, because right. I think what happens is we always fall victim to the last thing we see. And to be fair, it wasn't just the last thing we saw. I think he made 4 threes in all of ACC play. So he didn't shoot it well. We all know that. But I think it becomes such a storyline because it's just beaten into our brains. Like, oh, Elliot Cadeau didn't shoot well last year. Elliot Cadeau didn't shoot last year. The guy doesn't have to be a 40% free throw shooter. 3-point shooter for Carolina to be good. He doesn't have to go full Cam Johnson out there next season and make 90 threes or anything. He just has to be solid and competent. And I think too often we assume that because someone was terrible, at one thing at one point in their career, that the improvement has to be significant year over year. It doesn't have to be 12% or 14% or anything. It just has to be, you have to move in the right direction. So I don't want people to think if Elliot Cadeau comes out and shoots 34 or 35%, which is very respectable, that he didn't improve or that he's not a better player. It's just that there are other things that he's really, really good at. He's improved at certain things, and he's going to move forward. So I always worry when something like that becomes such a huge storyline and is repeated over and over, just because there are so many other good things that he does, and I'm sure so many other things that he's worked on during the offseason. So just